Hey there, Luma. It's me again, Denise from lumahat.com, and I'm gonna teach you how to knit this super cool textured ribbon hat pattern, and you can get all 4 sizes at lumahat.store. But without further ado, let's get started on one of these right now. I'm going to go step by step on how to knit the medium size hat with the garter stitch brim, but I want you to hang tight with me because I will show you how to make it multicolored, extra large, change the brim, as well as how to knit the smaller version. Remember that everything is in the written pattern at lumahat.store, including the smaller doll version. All right, let me tell you what you're going to need. A large gauge loom, and in my case that I'm doing the medium size, I'm going to be using the 36 peg. If you want to make a large size, then you need to use 41, and for the baby size, 31. And of course for the doll, you're going to be using the 24 peg. I used 75 yards of bulky yarn. For the other sizes, refer to the written pattern for the number of yards needed. You also will be using a loom hook, of course, your yarn needle, scissors, and optional but super easy to weave in the ends, a crochet hook, and I love using stitch markers for this type of pattern. Of course, also optional. The stitch pattern used for these hats is the textured ribbon stitch, and it has a multiple of 6. That means you need 6 pegs in order to create the stitch pattern. In my case that I'm using the 36 peg loom, I'm going to be repeating those 6 stitches 6 times. Same thing with the 41 peg loom, except you need an extra 5 stitches, and I'll explain how that works. With the 31 peg, you're going to repeat them 5 times and you'll have an extra peg, and I'll explain that later. Okay, so you see that I marked my first peg with a stitch marker, and then I repeated to mark every 6. That just makes it easier for me to follow the pattern. Now for the cast on, I'm going to do a U-wrap cast on of my 36 pegs. You're going to do the same thing with your loom. I'm going to take the yarn single strand, and I'm going to use a simple knot to secure the yarn to my anchor peg. You could use a slip knot if that's something you're more comfortable with. And then we're going to take the single strand between the first and last peg, and then we're going to start wrapping. I'm going to be knitting from right to left. So from the back, I wrap all of my pegs. Make sure that you have your pegs wrapped well. And like I said, you're going to wrap the number of pegs that you have on your knitting loom, okay? Because we're knitting in the round. That means in a circle. We're just going to keep going around and around. So finish wrapping all of your pegs. And then we're going to knit them off. To do this, you're going to take the working yarn and put it over the existing loop. Now, I, for some reason, go off camera here. Not to worry, because I'm going to repeat it so you could see it better. So I'm putting the working yarn over the loop that's on the peg, and then I'm going to take the loop that's under and I'm going to knit it off. Okay? So here I'm going to show you again so you could see it better because I went off camera. I take the working yarn, I put it over the existing loop, take the hook and take the bottom loop over the top and knit off. And that's what we're going to continue doing. So here on the cast on, we're going to use a U-wrap knit stitch, which is the only place we're going to use it. After this cast on, we're going to be using the E-wrap. But for now, just to get a nice tighter stitch, we're going to be using the U-wrap. So you put the working yarn over the existing loop and take the bottom loop over the top. Once you're done with the cast on, then you're ready for row 1. For the garter stitch brim, we're going to purl row 1. I show 36, so that's the number of pegs. Whatever number of pegs, you're going to purl that row. To do the purl stitch, you're going to take your working yarn and put it under the existing loop. You're going to then get your hook, and from the top you're going to scoop up that working yarn in order to create a new loop. There's my new loop right there. You're going to take the existing loop on the peg off of it, and then you're going to take that new loop and you're going to put it on the peg, and you're going to take your working yarn and pull it in order to tighten the loop that's on the peg. Now let's do that again. Remember that you need to purl the whole row, so all of them, all of your pegs, you're going to do this. Put the working yarn under the existing loop. From the top with your hook, you're going to scoop up and create a new loop. Take the existing loop that's on the peg off the peg, put the new loop on, and pull. There's your purl stitch. So if you're doing the garter stitch, whether you have 24, 31, or 41 or 36, doesn't matter. This is what you're doing. You're going to purl that row. That is row 1. When you're done knitting row 1, you're then, of course, ready for row 2, where you're just going to knit the row. Remember I said we were going to E-wrap the row. So this is how you E-wrap. You're going to completely wrap the peg, and you could do this 1 at a time, 3 at a time, 5 at a time, the whole row. You wrap your peg and then you take the bottom loop over the top and knit off. All right, let's see that again. I'm going to completely wrap my peg and take the bottom loop over the top and knit off. That's an E-wrap, and like I said, you can do that a couple of them at a time, you know, 3, 4, 5, 10, or all 36, 41, 31, whatever you're knitting. That's the E-wrap. Super easy. A lot of you guys just love the E-wrap. And so here you get a chance to do almost an entire pattern using this easy knit stitch. Once you're done with that row, you're ready for rows 3 through 8, where you're going to repeat rows 1 and 2 3 more times. For those of you that need a visual, here you see row 3, you're going to purl 36, row 4, you're going to knit 36. You're going to do the same thing for rows 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Once you're done with those rows, you're ready for 9, and 9 is super easy. You guys already know how to do this. I don't need to show you. You're going to purl the row. That's it. If you want to substitute that brim for the rib stitch brim, all you're going to do is for rows 1 through 9, you're going to knit 1, purl 1 until the last stitch, and then you're ready for rows 10 and 11. A quick heads up on that rib stitch brim. If you happen to have an odd number knitting loom like the 41 or the 31, you have that extra peg. So what you want to do is do that knit 1, purl 1, but the last peg, that extra one, you're going to purl that stitch. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that after a few rows, make sure to take the knot off the anchor peg. You don't want to leave it there. It will not be pretty. So make sure you take it off after 3 or 4 or 5 rows. And then you're ready for rows 10 through 11, where all you're going to do is knit the row. Remember that for your knit rows, you're going to be doing the E-wrap version. So completely wrap your peg, take the bottom loop over the top and knit off 2 rows of those, and then you're ready for rows 12 through 15, where you're going to purl 1, slip 2 with yarn and back, and then purl 3. Don't panic, don't leave the room. Super easy to do. You're just not going to believe how easy this is. Okay, first one, of course, is that purl stitch. So you're going to take the working yarn and put it under the existing loop. From the top, scoop up to create a new loop. And here's my new loop. I'm going to take the existing loop off the peg, put the new loop on, and pull. Then to slip or skip the next 2, I just take the working yarn and put it behind those 2. Slip and skip, it's the same thing. but you have to put the yarn behind the 2 pegs. Then the next part of those 6 stitches, the last 3 are 3 purl stitches. So you purl, which you guys already know how to do, right? Scoop up, create a new loop, take the old one off, put the new one on, and pull. And that's your 6 stitches. They are done. Okay, there we go. So we did a purl stitch, then we skipped, and you could see there where I skipped those 2, and then we did 3 purl stitches. So in my case, with my 36 pegs, I'm going to repeat that again, right? 5 more times, because it's 6 times in total. So I want to show you one more time. Even though this is super easy, let me show you on my next repeat. I'm going to put a purl stitch here, because that's the first stitch I'm going to do. Then I'm going to take my working yarn and I'm going to put it behind the next 2, because I'm going to slip or skip the next 2, and then I'm going to do 3 purl stitches. Now you're going to repeat these 6 stitches according to the size that you're knitting. But real quick, let me tell you about the odd number looms, the 41 and the 31. Before I tell you the change in the stitches, I do want you to understand that the row count would be different, and you need to refer to the written pattern in order to know how many rows before you get to this portion. So that's the first thing. All right, so now let me tell you what you're going to do with the 31 peg loom. All you're going to do is that extra peg, you're going to purl on these rows that you're going to repeat. Okay, so all that you need to do on the 31 is to add an extra purl stitch at the end. Now for the 41, which also has a different row count, so you have to refer to the pattern to know at what point in your row count will you then see this for your extra large, well, for your large hat. So in this case, you're going to have 5 extra pegs. And what you're going to do with those 5 extra pegs is you're going to purl 1, slip 2, and then purl 2. All right, that's what you're doing different on your 31 and your 41 peg loom. Now let's go back to the pattern that we're working on in this video, which is the medium size, where we're using the 36 peg loom. So now we're at rows 16 and 17, and all you're going to do is knit those rows. But real quick before I go over that with you, I did want to show you what your knitting is going to look like on the inside after you've done those 4 rows we just talked about. You see the slip rows right here. You can even count them, that there's exactly 4 of them where you slip 2 stitches. They're called slip with yarn in back, or you can just say skip. And then we're going to do those 2 rows now of just knit stitches. Remember that we're using the E-wrap version of the knit stitch, so wrap your pegs, take the bottom loop over the top, knit off your stitches. You're doing 2 rows of that. And once you're done with those 2 rows of E-wrap knit stitches, then you're going to do rows 18 through 21, where you're going to purl 4 and then slip or skip 2 with yarn in back. So the purl stitch again, you're going to scoop up, create a new loop, take the old one off, put the new one on, and pull your working yarn to tighten that stitch, and then just take the working yarn behind the next 2 pegs, and you're skipping them. That you're going to repeat, in my case 5 times, in your case as many times as necessary for your particular hat size. And let me show you one more time. I'm going to do those, repeat those 6 stitches where I'm going to purl 4 and then slip, or in other words skip, the next 2. And don't worry that those are the last ones, because the yarn gets anchored by your next group. Okay, now for those odd number looms, for the 31 peg, again, all you're going to do is purl that extra peg that you have at the end of your row, just like you did before. Remember, it's just that one extra peg. You're going to purl it. For the 41 peg loom, what you're going to do this time, because you have 5 extra pegs, you're going to purl 3. Instead of purling 4, you're going to only purl 3 and then slip those last 2 pegs at the end of your row. All right, that done. Let's go back to the medium one that we're working on in this video. And now for rows 22 through 45, what you're going to do is you're repeating rows 10 through 21 2 more times. In other words, the stitch pattern, which is made up of 6 stitches and 12 rows, you're going to repeat those 12 rows 2 more times. Then for rows 46 through 48, you're just going to again knit your rows. So E-wrap 36 for 3 more rows. And then we're ready for the cast off. Yay! To cast off, we're going to use a very simple method, which is called the gathered method. And in some cases, it's also called a drawstring cast off. And we're going to do that of all 36 pegs. So get the working yarn and you're going to go around your loom a whole time around, and then a few extra pegs, and then cut the working yarn. And you're going to take your hook, and from the top you're going to scoop the working yarn and feed it completely through the loop, and do that again. I'm going to do that for my 36 pegs. You're going to do that for the number of pegs that you have, 31, 41, whatever number of pegs you have, 24. Make sure that they all get that working yarn through the loop completely. And once you've done that very last loop, then super easy. All you're going to do now is take the loops off the pegs. So you're going to free your working yarn, your project, from your loom. While you guys finish taking those loops off the pegs, let me take the time to say thank you to Carol Maple from PromiseLearningATL.com, Penny Pitcher, Barbara Ledger, Bob Urquhart, Joanne Claiborne, and now Linda Rapp for covering the cost of closed captioning this video for all of us. Thank you guys, you're awesome. Okay, once you're done taking the loops off the knitting loom and you freed your project, pull on the drawstring to bring all of those loops together to gather that opening and to try to close it. You don't close it completely, because then you need to take that strand of yarn and take it from the outside and bring it inside, because what we need to do next is to secure that crown to make sure that it doesn't open back again. So cut the tip of that yarn, that strand, and put it through a yarn needle. And now we're going to take the yarn needle and put it through those top loops. And as you go around the circle, pull on it to close that little hole on the top, to completely close it. And again, like I said, to secure it. I'm going to go around once, but you can go around more than that if you'd like. And real quickly, let me just say thank you to you guys if you made it all the way to this part. Remember to subscribe, to comment, and most important, that you share the video, because that helps me big time to continue to do more videos for you. Okay, once you're done with that, now what you need to do is weave in the end that's at the bottom where your brim is. But first, let me tell you about color change, because I did say I was going to do that. The way you're going to change color is that you're going to wait until you have 2 consecutive rows of knit stitches. And what you're going to do is that on the second row is when you're going to do the color change. So the first row has the original color, and the second row then is when you change to your next color. And that's it. That's going to avoid dashes. Now find the cast on strand at the bottom of your hat. I want you to take it, and you'll see that there's a bit of a line that shows up. You can remove this by steam blocking or wet blocking. I'm going to help you do it with your end when you're going to weave it in. So go ahead and feed it through the next loop at the bottom. You see where it's at? And then you're going to go up those loops. So zigzag, and take the needle with that working yarn up. This was where you increase your rows. When you increase the rows, that's what happens. But you see how easy we can fix that. So make it all the way to the top. When you're done, pull it nice and tightly, and then take the yarn back inside the hat, and guys, you are done. Now remember that you can visit loom-ahead.store and get the pattern with all 4 sizes. Luma, thank you for watching this video, and here's some more YouTube things you'll like. Bye.